So episode 2 of The Amazing Digital Circus is finally here. Wowee! And in episode 2, not only are we introduced to new characters, but new levels as well, which shows us there's a lot more to this game than we previously believed. Is it actually possible that this new level is a reflection of the real world outside of the digital circus? It sounds crazy, but it might actually be true. So let's go through all the evidence, starting with, is the Candy Canyon a post-apocalyptic world? So episode 2 introduced us to Candy Canyon when Caine sends the group on to their next mission, recover the syrup.
This one's full of syrup too.
Very serious. They do this by trying to recover a tank from a group of gummy bandits. Not something I've ever tried to say that multiple times. Group of gummy bandits. Group of bunny rabbits. It's hard. This is actually very similar to a very popular movie series. The whole war seems to be a reference to Mad Max, according to our friend A.LMAO.
The war rig fights a spike-covered fuel tanker just like in Fury Road. In that movie, the war rig also had a signature horn sound. Jax runs to the war rig thinking it'll have a cool horn, but it sounds awful, so he swaps seats, which is pretty funny. Jax also carries a sawed-off shotgun like the one from the movie.
I can definitely see that they may have taken inspiration. Also, there is a new Mad Max movie coming out, so it could be fresh on their mind. Put a mad face emoji in the comments. Not because you're mad at me, but you're mad at Max. So does this mean that Candy Canyon is actually a post-apocalyptic world, just like in the movie Mad Max? And does this mean the syrup is some type of fuel? Which I think so, because I'm pretty sure the syrup was retrieved from the tank. Or the syrup could just be a natural source, just like water that the characters need to survive.
Well, I'm gonna go drink water.
And my guess is that Caine didn't think this far ahead. I mean, he's just dentures, you know? I don't think he's got a brain up there. We have theorized before that the digital circus could be a program to keep people from going crazy in the post-apocalyptic world. Could the Candy Kingdom be a reference to what the real world outside looks like? Let me know. I just know that I'm mad at Max. Next secret, the creator of the digital circus, Gooseworks, is a One Piece fan. Which obviously that's not that big of a secret or surprise, but it's fun to see the references in episode 2. Take a look at this. This is a tweet from Gooseworks. Finally got caught up reading One Piece. I think that's kind of fun, and also this kind of looks like Zooble. When it's time for the crew to head back to the Candy Kingdom, this fudge monster lets the characters ride on its head through the desert. And I thought he was kind of cute.
If you knew what I did in my free time, oh, you'd be sickened.
This is actually similar to Luffy and the Straw Hat crew when they ride Hasami, a giant desert crab. Look at this thing. Kind of creepy, right? Which obviously both scenes show a giant monster carrying a crew on its head through the desert, which I assume Gooseworks is such a big fan, they may have tried to give a tribute to one of the world's biggest animes. But some people disagree. Do you believe this is a One Piece reference? Next secret was Pomni replaced.
I don't know.
In the beginning, Pomni has a nightmare about her abstracting. And after she wakes up, she has a bit of a different attitude than she did in episode 1.
Huh?
She seems much more welcoming to the idea of going on adventures and dealing with her new digital reality. She really isn't questioning it as much as she did in episode 2, and she's kind of just going along with the flow like Ragatha.
It's amazing.
But why was she sleeping? Because we know from episode 1 that the characters don't need to sleep in the digital circus. In other words, Pomni is sleeping simply to feel more comfortable, which is a very big contrast to how she was in episode 1. That's not the only thing different about when she wakes up from her nap. She seems to know a lot more about the circus and the game itself. When Pomni and Gummy Goo slip into the space between levels, she does seem to have an idea way more than she did before of what's going on.
We're somewhere under the map, I think.
She knows he's an NPC. She also knew how to explain the situation to Gummy Goo, answering all of his questions. She even knows how to glitch the system so they can escape. She was also very convinced in episode 1 that this was all just a dream.
Thank goodness this is all a dream, right, Pomni?
In previous theories, we talked about that Pomni might be a replacement for Kaufmo. In the past, y'all have told me that Kaufmo is a clown and Pomni is a jester. But guess what? The Gummy Goo buddies call Pomni a clown.
It's not like the boss to vanish with a clown. Very unusual.
So maybe I was right. What if Pomni was Kaufmo's first update. This could explain why she believes everything was all just a dream. So after her dream in episode 2, is she still the same Pomni? Is it possible that Pomni was replaced in her dreams and that she's actually just an updated version of herself? That actually takes us to our next secret. Is Caine using dreams to program Pomni? As we said before, Pomni is a very different person when she wakes up from her dream. Again, in episode 1, Ragatha tells us the characters don't need to sleep. But listen to what else she says here.
Oh well, where we all sleep at night. Even though we don't really need to sleep, it's sometimes nice to kind of take a break from everything and have a bit of a routine, you know?
So they do sleep, but it's just to maintain a routine. I missed that until now. And we also know that all the characters have changed from when they first entered the circus. We're reminded of this in episode 2 when Kinger says,
We're worried she's having another horrible experience. She still seems really upset about what happened yesterday.
It's a lot for anybody to go through. Don't take it too personally. I remember how long it took for you to adjust.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised you remember that.
So Kinger remembers when Ragatha changed and became the Ragatha we all know. And we know that Jax has collected everyone's dark secrets over his time here.
Wait, why?
Plus, let's talk about how Zuba looks a little bit different in this episode, which could mean her character model has been updated. Is it possible that all these changes over time is a result of Caine programming them in their dreams? You tell me, I'm not sure, but I'm a little scared to take a nap right now. This one's crazy. Wonka exists in the digital circus. When the crew first lands in the River of Fudge, this is what Jax says.
Oh man, poor Pomni. I hope she's all right.
Poor Pomni? How about poor us? We're one tanker away from being Augustus Gloop.
He referenced Augustus Gloop, which is the kid that falls in the river. And of course, he is a reference to the movie Willy Wonka. But also what's odd about this reference is, how does Jax know who Willy Wonka is? Does Wonka exist in the game? Or is Jax the only one who remembers life before entering the digital circus?
I'm so unbelievably disappointed right now.
What happened to Jax in this scene is not the most interesting thing. It's what happened to Pomni. Which leads us to our next secret. What was the mysterious place between the levels? The craziest part of episode 2 has to be when Gummy Goo and Pomni clipped through the walls of the game and ended up somewhere under the map. And our friend, Cartoon Universe, has a great idea as to what this place could be.
Instead, the biggest problem the humans in the digital circus face are the glitches. Like in real-life video games, one of the most basic examples of this is when certain physical corners of a map have strange holes in them and players can glitch out of bounds. In some cases, the characters end up in a special default level that loads up. These default levels are used by staff creating a video game to test out characters, animations, actions, physics, etc. for the game.
Wait, I didn't know that. So Cartoon Universe is saying these levels are what also can be called developer rooms, a special design room that usually is placed out of bounds of regular player maps in order to store characters and assets specifically designed for said levels. Interesting. Did you guys know this? I mean, I was really convinced that this area was like where they were dead and their bodies were staying, but it sounds like they could have just clipped through a wall of the game. All of the characters seem to be in a T-pose, which is apparently the pose animators always use during the character creation process. It's also important to remember this isn't the first time we've seen glitches like this in the Amazing Digital Circus. Pomni literally glitches immediately when she wakes up from her nap. There was also a lot of texture clipping glitches in episode 1, but they were mostly revolving around the gloinks, and even in a teaser on Twitter. One of the main things to note here is that we only see the NPC character models down here and none of the human players.
Why aren't you or any of your crew up here?
And the room also randomly seems to have a lot of teapots in it, which I love tea, but that was really random. Gave like Alice in Wonderland vibes, right? Which takes us to our next secret. You probably noticed when Pomni and Gummy Goo were trying to escape that there were a lot of teapots under the map. This is a reference to something called a Utah teapot, which our friend ALMAO describes.
This is a reference to the Utah teapot, which is a famous in-joke among programmers. Basically, the Utah teapot was created in 1975 as a reference model, since a teapot is good for showing shadows, colour and depth when modelling. It's been referenced in a bunch of stuff like The Simpsons and Toy Story.
But the teapot also reminded me of something else. Remember in the intro of episode 1 where they kept repeating day after day after day? Remember the objects that were floating over their head? One of them was a teapot doesn't mean that the rest of the objects are a hint to what could come later in future episodes. In the past, we've talked about the similarities between the Amazing Digital Circus and Alice in Wonderland. The teapot continues the trend. In Alice in Wonderland, Alice obviously joins the Mad Hatter for a tea party. But as we all know, the tea party in Wonderland is absolutely chaotic. Which makes sense because Gummy Goo is having the same realizations about his reality in this area. So that's the tea for you on the teapot. That was cheesy, wasn't it? Guys, do you want to be a superhero? Well, head to bremerch.com and get the superhero dress-up kit. Not only does this mask work for any plushie, you also get a cape just for you. Now, next secret is crazy. I'm throwing it out there. Jax is Caine's kid. I know, wild. While we got to see a lot of Jax in this episode, there's still a lot about Jax that we don't know. And in this episode, it actually gave us more questions than answers. How does he always have the keys? He bragged about knowing Ragatha's greatest fears in episode 1.
You're not afraid of centipedes, are you?
Jax! That's literally my only fear. Why would you do this?
He mentions the figurine thing to Gangle.
Do it, or I'll tell Ragatha about the figurine thing.
Which to me references that he has a lot of dirt on the other characters in the circus. The fact that he knows how all the other characters are supposed to be tells us a lot. He was also extremely excited to try out the new AI and was very disappointed at the end of the episode when it didn't turn out to be as fun as he would have hoped.
Whatever.
It's almost as if he's acting like the circus is his toy, like it was made for him to play in.
What? I thought he was dead. You still did that?
Could the circus be Caine's way of entertaining his son? Could this explain why he acts so childish and mean to everyone else? Or is he just somebody who helps code the games like we've said before? One thing is for sure. Jax is definitely a gamer. He literally stole from a popular video game character in this episode. Jax stole his bazooka from Donkey Kong. During the car chase scene, we see Jax literally pull out a boot bazooka, which is actually from Donkey Kong 64, as our friend The G Marcus explains.
Apparently the boot bazooka that Jax used on the purple crack was a reference to Donkey Kong 64, specifically Funky Kong using an almost identical weapon against King K. Rool at the end of the game. Good to know the crew is cultured.
It literally looks exactly the same. Now the big question is, how did the bazooka from Donkey King Country end up in the Candy Canyon? Did Jax steal it from another video game? Is it a coincidence or just a reference? Let me know what you think in the comments. And Jax stealing from Donkey Kong is certainly not the only video game reference. That takes us to our next secret. The NPCs are programmed with data from other games. So we know that the circus itself is a video game, and episode 1 even contains references to games like Runmo.
You didn't experience a game show in there, did you?
In episode 2, we get another obscure video game reference, as our friend ALMAO explains.
When the smaller crocodile is holding the rope, he strikes a pose each time he's dodging the rocks. A little white effect appears behind him and a funny sound effect plays. This is actually a reference to an indie game called Pizza Tower. When the main character Peppino taunts in game, he does a little pose with this sound effect, just like in episode 2.
And let's be real, Princess Lu's castle looks a lot like Princess Peach's in Mario 64. Which is fitting, because not only does she look a bit like Princess Peach, she even has peaches in her hair. We even see what looks like soul fire at Gummy Goo's camp. And for those of you who are like, maybe that's what fire looks like in the Candy Kingdom, this promo proves otherwise. Take a look at this. Glitch tweeted this, or X'd this, who knows nowadays. Hold on. Does Pomni not look like this? Look at this dog, now look at her. Literally, definitely a reference there, in my opinion. With all of these other game references, is it possible that Caine is actually using codes from other video games for the Amazing Digital Circus? Or maybe he's using something else, which leads to our next secret. Is Caine using humans to program his game? When Caine introduces the new levels and Zooble walks away, he says this.
Zooble, wait! I'm testing out a new AI in this one. It should be 57 times more immersive.
The fact that he's added new AI means he's still adding to the game. It's also strange timing because this is the day after Kaufmo abstracted. And at the end of this episode highlights, the crew hasn't even had time to process this yet. I've also noticed that Kaufmo's abstracted body is covered in eyes like the cellar, which reminded me of this part of episode 1.
We stay right here, where I can keep my hundreds of all-seeing eyes on you.
Where does he have so many eyeballs from, by the way? Are those eyes? Are they abstracted a part of Caine? Or are they simply just something he uses to build more intelligent programming?
Bubble, you can't say that.
Remember how emotional Gummy Goo was about learning he was an NPC? Was this part of the new AI? If so, this new AI seems to make them more human, maybe because it's made from them. If abstracted humans is what is used to create the code for the Amazing Digital Circus, it could explain why Caine will not allow NPCs into the circus.
Oh, looks like one of these guys made it through.
Wait, what?
The fact that Caine is still building the game also gave me another idea for a secret. The void is a blank space for new levels. That makes a lot of sense, right? The fact that Caine is still making the game reminds me of this line in episode 1.
Gasp! Alert on my wacky watch at this hour? Oh no! Someone's venturing out into the void! They'll get totally spoiled!
Spoiled! Maybe that'll ruin a surprise of something? Which could mean there's something out there that we will encounter down the line.
Wait, this isn't finished yet! Don't look!
Is this the place that Caine is building new levels? The one thing that throws a wrench into this idea, though, is something he says to Pomni when he introduces her to the idea of the void.
We don't venture out into the void. Not even I know what's out there.
If he doesn't even know what's out there, could it really be his workspace? And on top of that, when Caine ventures into the void, he teleports there and back. Like, he's like, get me out of there. But in this episode, we saw him using portals to get to new levels. However, there may be an explanation for this. Caine's code is broken. Uh-oh. There's more than a few reasons to believe Caine's code is broken outside of the fact that literally when he opens his mouth, he sounds like he's lost all his marbles.
The Candy Kingdom needs you now!
For starters, in this episode, he revealed that he can't actually tell the difference between humans and NPCs. At least if he's around them too long, because he did recognize him as soon as he walked in. Weird, right? When explaining it, he has some weird glitch where one arm twists around the other. And on top of that, in episode 1, he didn't even know that Pomni had wandered into the void until his wacky watch told him so. He also was completely unaware that Kaufmo had glitched, which is weird for somebody who says, I have all-seeing eyes. But NPCs call him a god. Maybe they are to him, but he very clearly has some human limitations for a god. And when we look at the Alice in Wonderland references again, it all makes sense. Caine is clearly the Mad Hatter, which references that he's a man on the breaking point of madness, which for a video game AI would show up as a glitch. But it's also possible that Caine isn't the game's programmer at all. Is Pomni a programmer? As we've talked about before, Pomni now seems to know a lot more about her situation than she did before in episode 1. Maybe that means she was programmed to in her dream, or she was even replaced by another version of herself. Or maybe she is the programmer. So we've talked about this theory in some of our past videos because there is some evidence to this in episode 1. And this comes mostly from how she looked at the headset on the desk and started laughing like crazy. In episode 2, not only does she reference to Gummy Goo exactly how everything works, but also how to escape, using the same clipping glitch that got them there in the first place. And maybe she knows this because she programmed it. It's possible that Pomni created the digital circus, including Caine. Maybe she's playtesting her own game. Let me know what you think. With that said, Pomni is not the only circus member holding back some secrets. Ragatha will betray Pomni. I know it sounds crazy, but listen, when Pomni falls into the hole in her dream, she sees 3 people standing over her mocking her. Caine, Jax, and Ragatha. And after Pomni wakes up from this dream, she talks with Ragatha outside her door.
And don't worry about the whole abandoning me for the exit thing. It's perfectly understandable what you were going through at the time, and there's no hard feelings. You're all good. Well, let's forget about all that.
Is it just me, or does Pomni look like she cannot trust Ragatha anymore, and that Ragatha is being mega sus and guilty? She keeps apologizing constantly. In the end, she's also the one who grabs Pomni's hand, including Gangle and Zooble, meaning that Pomni definitely does trust her. Ragatha keeps having all these terrible things happen to her, which could indeed lead her to snap one day. Pomni's dream was definitely foreshadowing something, and having Ragatha there was a very specific choice that the creators of the series chose. Will she betray Pomni in episode 3? I hope not. Or hopefully Ragatha is just truly her best friend. Either way, she's not the only one hiding secrets. Kinger is pretending to be crazy. Can you imagine? Remember the scene we played earlier when Kinger was talking with Ragatha about how much she's grown in the circus? Ragatha was just as shocked as I am that Kinger actually remembered what she was like in the beginning and seemed to remember it quite vividly. And as soon as Ragatha points this out,
remember what?
He forgets, or does he? It's not like this is the first time Kinger has played dumb. Remember this in episode 1?
You wanna come with us to check on Kaufmo?
No, not really. I think Kaufmo's gone insane. Last time I spoke with him, he was rambling endlessly about some exit. Kinda like you, Pomni. You might be going insane too.
He knew that Kaufmo abstracted before anyone else did. Seems a little odd for somebody who is always forgetting things. Maybe it's all just an act, and if so, what is he hiding? Maybe he really knows what happened to Kaufmo. And speaking of what happened to Kaufmo, what if Gummy Goo is Kaufmo? From the first 2 episodes of this series, it seems like there's a revolving door of characters. As soon as one abstracts, another one is introduced, which makes everything that happens to Gummy Goo in this story a little weird. The bulk of episode 2 revolves around his realization that he's just an NPC. He becomes aware of his reality, just like Kaufmo. Additionally, just like Kaufmo, he is literally removed at the end of this episode, which is also immediately followed up by Kaufmo's funeral. Now, the events being back to back could simply be a coincidence, but I feel like the writers are trying to tell us something. What do you guys think? And last but not least, the question that's on everyone's mind. When will we get episode 3? Well, we don't know yet. The short answer is probably in the fall. Honestly, it was remarkable that Glitch was able to produce episode 2 so quickly. Since it took them about 6 months to get to episode 2, it will likely take the same amount of time or a little quicker, which means we will probably see episode 3 towards the end of this year. That's every secret we found in this episode, but did you find something we missed? Let us know in the comments, and maybe your theory will be in our next video. And don't forget to check out our other amazing digital circus secrets right here.
Bye!